But I'm very interested in your thoughts on the trade deal that they're going to be talking about at G20. You have some sources that you've been speaking to. What is the part of the deal?
Yeah, I've been talking with a friend who's on the team and is working on this, specifically on the Trump-Xi summit for trade at the G20 Summit this week. And it seems that a compromise is in the works. I mean, the goal of this summit is to agree on a framework to get the talks back on track without President Trump initiating new tariffs on $300 billion worth of Chinese goods. And the compromise has been in the works for the last few weeks. And basically the deal is that the Chinese would go back and agree to the tough enforcement mechanisms that they backed away from a couple of weeks ago. And what the United States would do is that we will get rid of our blanket ban on Huawei products. And there were also some tariffs that remained in force in the previous agreement that will do it. This will allow both sides to save some face, to say they've made a compromise. Okay. And I think there's better than even chance that we're going to see an agreement, because both of these guys have huge egos. They both believe in the great man theory of history, which means only the two of us can make a deal, not our aides. Only we can do it. We can do it, and they'll get it done. You think they'll get something done? The enforcement part on the Chinese side, what was that you're saying that they backed away from, and now they will do? Just quickly. Well, yes. What we had, Bob Lighthizer, our chief negotiator, had very, very tough enforcement and restrictions, because in past agreements they would cheat, they would steal our technology, and what happened was they go to the World Trade Organization, we would win, and then 10 years later nothing would happen. They just keep appealing. So, now that's different. I see. So that's going to be obviously something that we'll talk about a lot, and we'll see whether or not new tariffs come into place, which they definitely do not want. Let's talk about your investment ideas these days. I mean, you look for stocks, before we get to your picks, that have certain characteristics, such as? I mean, we're at the end of a bull market. Everybody knows that. I mean, at some point we're going to go into a recession, and so I think you have to think ahead, and you need boring stocks. You need stocks that do well during recessions. I mean, people forget that during 2007 to 2009, during the financial crisis and the last Great Recession, Walmart went up 7% during that period, when the S&P was down 57% during the whole recession. And so you want those kinds of stocks that are undervalued now, but are going to do well in the next recession. So let's get to some. You said low PE, high return on equity, high free cash flow, and you named some names including AT&T, Merck, Apple, and Intel. Yes, I mean, Intel, I think, I mean, it has like, a very low PE at the moment. I always look at forward PEs. You can't look at trailing PEs anymore, because they don't actually include all of the Trump tax cut. So you have to look forward. And so on looking at a forward PE, I think it's 9 or something that Intel has. If we get rid of the trade war with China, all those chip stocks are going to do very, very well. So that's a thing. Merck is undervalued at the moment, and it's had some problems, but it's one of the largest pharmaceutical companies, and healthcare is going up. The two picks that I have, AT&T and Apple, they are going to be the beneficiaries of the greatest technological change in our generation, which is 5G. I mean, the head of the National Science Foundation just said that this is the greatest technological development since the printing press was invented. But it's going to take a couple of years to roll out in all big cities and in suburbs, probably longer for rural areas. Nobody's going to want to buy an Apple telephone for $1,000 now, when think about this, in 2 years or a year and a half, when they roll out their first in 2020 5G phone, every app is going to work differently. Everything is different. The speeds for downloading are 100 times greater than they are right now.
Right.
And in the labs, they've done it 1,000 times greater. It's going to change everything. Within about 2 or 3 years after 2020, every person who owns an iPhone in the world is going to have to upgrade. You think about the revenue that's going to be generated by Apple. But for a while, sales are going to be slow because everybody knows this is coming.
Right. But you think it's a lot of money towards our economy too, right?
It's going to create, just like 4G did. You know, 4G allowed the internet, apps, things like, and the you know, the economy.
So how can you say it's the end of a bull market when you're talking about all this revenue that could come to?
There's a difference between. I mean, let's face it. Recessions are part of the cycle. I mean, it's like night follows day, and we are going to have a recession at some point. Now, you know, it might be end of 2020, beginning of 2021, but that didn't stop, you know, technology from advancing during the last. You know, we've only had an iPhone for 10 years. We've only had an iPad for 7 years.
That's amazing. Right?
And, you know, all this was happening, and the world is changing and changing quickly, and you should see the things that are coming with 5G. It's not just phones. It's smart cities. It makes driverless cars, because for the first time we have no latency. No, it's real-time data, and it's going to completely change healthcare.